Hi, folks. Dan Bird here on Monday, November 18th. Welcome to the Daily Scan, brought to you by breakpointtrading.net. So let's jump into it. Today it's kind of a boring, didn't do much day. The NASDAQ did pretty well. We'll take a look at that in a second. And we did get a few hits on our scan today, too. So I'll look at those and see what they look like. But let's start with the market bias on the home page. You can see right here, ticked down slightly today. So not really too significant, but went down a little bit. We also had a short-term bear signal, so we now have an orange in our stoplight, in our light. So caution. Let's look at each of the charts. The S&P, as you can see, came back like I talked about last week. It came right back to support and just hung out there, just sitting right on top of the 21-day moving average. And I'll zoom in on this so you can see it. So right here, sitting right on the 21, actually closed a little bit above the support line. So that's actually a good thing. Let's look at the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ, in this case, is below the support line, sitting right below the 21-day moving average and right in the gap area. So you can see the open gap right here, right after the election. And so it pulled back. It almost closed the gap, didn't quite close it technically, but it's sitting right in the gap area right now. So I would say everything right now is just on hold. And it's on hold for NVDA, I think. So NVIDIA is going to explode the market one way or the other. It will explode and take off, or it will explode and fall apart. And I kind of expect to see things kind of go sideways like this tomorrow as well, because NVIDIA reports on Wednesday. We'll look at the NVIDIA chart in a minute. Let's take a look at the Dow, just for fun. And I'm going to bring this in a little bit so I don't have to keep scrolling over. So the Dow, again, sitting right on support. Everybody's waiting for NVIDIA. The gap is way down here on the Dow, so potentially could close it. We'll bring it down to the 50-day moving average, but it doesn't mean that it has to. So we'll see what happens. And then, of course, Bitcoin, which has been making its run to 100,000. Again, also just treading water, sitting right there at the consolidation area. The next target is 102.5 right up here. So again, it's probably waiting for NVIDIA like everyone else. And we'll see which way the market goes as a result of that. So let's take a look real quick at first the semiconductors, because you can see they were in the bottom 10 last week for the industry groups. And if we look at the chart for semiconductors, they are sitting right on the 50-day. They had a big sell-off, sitting right on the 50-day moving average right there. Could go either way. So it's basically the same story. Everybody's waiting for NVIDIA. If NVIDIA comes in good with not only positive earnings and revenue, but also great guidance, then semiconductors and NVIDIA should take off. If not, if they disappoint in any way, the market is poised to break through the support level and maybe head back down here to 17,500, 17,000, maybe even down to 16,000. While we're here, let's take a look at NVIDIA just for fun, since they are a semiconductor. NVIDIA looks very similar, and you can see how the semis follow along with NVIDIA. So it's the same story. It's quite a bit above its 50-day. It's just below the 21, though. So 21-day is reversion to the mean. If we look at the Keltner channels, you can see it made it up here to the 3x area. Usually when it gets to 3x, it usually reverts to the mean, which means coming back down to the 21-day, like it did here, like it did here, like it is right now. So it's ready to go one way or the other. It actually looks a little bit weak, frankly. So I don't know if it's signaling to us that it's going to head down, but it's pulled back to just below the 21-day, which is a reversion to the mean. We look at the squeeze from John Carter. does not have a squeeze right now. That did have a squeeze back here just before this run up. But right now it's, the low that it could potentially be heading towards is 132.50 down here. And the high is up around 170. So we'll see what happens. Also, let's look at renewable energy because it did pretty well today. So renewable energy has just been having a significant sell-off. It did come up a little bit today, and we'll see that when we look at the industry groups, but not really anything of significance. And the other one I want to look at is software, because software has had a great run, huge run right here, till it hit the highs right here, pulled back. Again, it looks very similar to semiconductors, ended with a spinning top doji. So the way to think about this is it opened here, it traded up, it traded down, and it closed right back where it opened. So that's indecision that many times will lead to a reversal, but it could also mean a continuation. It just means that the battle between bulls and bears is equal right now. So they too are just waiting for NVDA. It should be an explosive day on Wednesday after they report, or Thursday. Actually, let me see when NVIDIA. This isn't going to tell me whether it's after hours, but it's on the 20th. So it is Wednesday. If I go back to the main page, this is the home page, breakpointtrading.net. You can find the newsletter right there. But you can also look for earnings by clicking that little button in the upper right. And let's look at NASDAQ 100, and NVIDIA is right at the top. And right now it's after the close. So the fireworks are probably going to start on Thursday. There'll probably be a lot of movement after hours, but there's not much volume. So the liquidity is lower after hours. So it could be very volatile after hours. And Thursday will be the actual reaction, the market reaction, to see which way it's going to go. Palo Alto also after the close. And Supermicro, we'll see if they actually report. They have just been having a horrible time. So anyway, that's Thursday. Watch out for that. Let's take a look at the dashboard for today. So the Dow pretty much flat. S&P up slightly, but it's fairly flat. NASDAQ did a little bit better, a little over 0.5% gain for the NASDAQ. And small caps were the laggard, and large caps and the NASDAQ 100, which is mostly large caps also. Those were the big gainers today, and the VIX actually pulled back. So that's interesting because the VIX, as the market really just tread water today, but as the market has been selling off, the VIX actually was coming down. So the VIX is signaling that the market's not really too concerned right now. We're heading into the best part of the year after tomorrow. So I think everybody should be ready for that, be poised. Got an opportunity right now with things pulling back to maybe find some good opportunities. Down here on sectors, energy was the leading sector today, and that's where we found one of our scans today, and that actually added it to our list. I'll show you that in a minute. Up 1.3, up 1.33%. The laggard was industrials down here. Technology was near the bottom as well. So communication services, discretionary, and energy were the leaders. And if we look down at the industry groups down here, automobiles was number one. If we look at the chart for that, you can see autos had a huge run up. This was mostly Tesla, but even GM and some of the other automakers ran up and then pulled back, and now it's starting to move up again. And I'm noticing that on some of the charts that they actually are beginning to look like that, beginning to look like after a pullback, starting to move higher. So there's renewable energy. That's why I clicked on that, because it's number 5 on our list in the industry groups. This is just for today, by the way. Gold and mining starting to make a comeback as well. I noticed a couple of gold stocks were on the list on Friday. So XLB, notice that. That's materials. One, two, three of them in the top 10. And energy right down here. Pipelines primarily, but also energy up here for coal. But the stock that I picked today actually is in the energy group. Energy actually did pretty well today. And then on our top 10 list, these are the ones that were at the top for the day. Lifeway Foods. This is the one that hit the scan. Venom, Viper Energy. So I'll talk about that in a minute. But all of these are in the top 10 lists. So Vistra Energy, that's always done really well. Here's an infrastructure play. So all of these usually are pretty strong stocks. So let's take a look at those. Let's take a look at the scan actually for today. So the scan for today, if I go down and pull that up, the one that gave some good opportunities, it looks like, is the downtrend reversal scan. So I will show you all of them. 2, 4, 6, 7 of them today. Last week I was only getting 1 or 2. So it's a good sign that this is starting to pick up. That's kind of the way it should work. If the market begins to move higher again, then we should get more and more scans. But this is what hit today. You can see Viper Energy is right at the top. And the way you can do this if you have a Stock Charts membership is save to a chart list. I replace the list. I have one that I use just for massaging data, which I call scan dump. So I'm going to replace and move all those 7 stocks right into there. And that allows me then to sort or slice and dice it any way I want. So percent change was right here. Viper Energy is right in the middle, a percent change for the day. You can see the earnings coming up over on the right-hand side. Now I've changed my scan, so it's only going to give me earnings that are more than 3 weeks out. So that's good. This one here looks at really interesting too, docs. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go up here and click on Chart Book, and this will allow me to look at all 7 of these with indicators on them. This is basically my default view. So there you can see, in this case, it'll be alphabetical. So this is Brainsway Medical Equipment Supplier, right above the 50, but below the 21. So that's why I didn't like that. The momentum is still going down, hasn't crossed over down here. And accumulation distribution is okay, but kind of rolling over. So that's why I didn't pick that one. Cousins Properties is diversified REITs. These kind of move slowly, but if you're into REITs, they usually pay a good dividend. In this case, a little over 4% dividend. The next one is Docs. This is the software company. This one actually looks really good. I'm going to watch this one tomorrow and maybe even get into it tomorrow. So this had a great run up. That was earnings on 11.7. And then it pulled back to the 21-day. That's reversion to the mean right there. Oops. Reversion to the mean right there. It didn't really pull back much on the momentum. And the longer term MACD is definitely moving higher. And the accumulation distribution line is just starting to move up, and down here is money flow. So money flow is beginning to come into it as well. So this one actually looks pretty good. We'll take a look at that tomorrow to see if it continues to move up. Next is Hylon Holdings. I don't like that. It's just a lot of noise in through there. Here's a gold stock. Again, this is a lot of volatility. It's moving up and down. It's below the 21 and the 50-day moving average. So that's not one that I like, but it could move higher. Rush Street is, you can see it's had a nice run up, had a big pullback, came down to the 21, starting to move up again. So, and it's above 0 for momentum. And accumulation distribution looks okay. Pullback right here through this little pullback period. So that one is interesting. It's a gambling stock, and those can be very volatile. So that's the reason I passed on that one for today. And here's the one I picked, Viper Energy. So Viper Energy, beautiful chart. The momentum is above 0 up here, starting to curl back up. Pullback, you can see it hit higher highs, higher highs. This is actually on the 52-week high list. So it's over 50, barely, but over 50. Pullback, and now beginning to move up. Came back to the 21. The momentum indicators are starting to cross over and move up. And accumulation distribution looks great. The only thing I'd like to see a little bit better is the short-term money flow to start ticking higher as well. You can see the long-term, which is the darker green, has been up here and stayed up here. So long-term money flow is staying in this, but it looks like it came out right through this period here. So we'll have to see if it moves back in. But as you'll see, by doing it this way, our risk is very low because we're going to put the stop right below where that pullback ended. And we're just now started to move up. So very low risk on this. That was the last one. And if we want to look at this in other ways, we can go over here and go to sharp charts. And now we can look at this. This is the default. This one here shows you volume as well. Volume is kind of tame, but look at how it's doing versus its peers. Definitely outperforming its peers. It's in energy sector, exploration, and production is the industry group. So earnings are on the 25th of February. They're plenty far out, so that's good. They have a 4.8% yield for dividends. So forward dividend is $2.56 forward dividend. So everything looks good about this one. And look at the accumulation distribution. Looks fantastic. We look at this on a longer term chart. There's what it's done. It's just continually going higher. And this is why it made that top 10 list. It keeps making high after high after high. That's what we want. We want a pullback, which we have, and then starting to take off again. So we'll see if that continues. There's support down in here. You see the 50-day right there. And that's exactly where I put the stop at the 50-day. It's right in the support area, right through here. So it's just above the 50-day moving average. And it's right where all of these days it came down and touched it and went back up. So that's pretty solid support right there at 50. So let's take a look at the worksheet. And you can see Venom is in here now. So if I click on that chart, and you can see we've got 50-day for the stop price. That's the 5% loss if it reverses immediately. The number of shares is 130, and the way that we calculate that is using the risk calculator, which is part of this worksheet. The risk calculator down here allows you to put the stock symbol in here. You can click here to get a chart and also get the average true range, which we need because that shows volatility. So we put the average true range in right there. It's $1.44. And we put the price, our target price, $52.75. And I actually bought this right at the end of the day today. Literally probably 2 minutes left in the session. And then down here is where we set the stop. So if we just use the standard 7%, which is what IBD suggests, that would be $49. But I'm using 50 instead, which would give us a 5.21% loss if it goes down there. And by calculating all of these rules, so there's a 1% rule, and this explains all the rules and gives you the calculation. There's an account rule, which means if it goes out of business tomorrow, we only lose 7% of our portfolio. And then the ATR rule, which explains ATR, and you can actually click on that and go to the link for ATR. All three of these are in the calculations. So in the first one, you can see it suggested 364 up here, just using that rule. Just using this rule, it suggested 133. And since it's ending up with 130, then that means the volatility rule was the most conservative. So it will calculate each of these three, and it will take the most conservative of the three and then figure out how many shares you can buy based on that. So in this case, it's 130 shares, and we now have that in here. So we'll continue to watch this and see how it does. The ones that are in here still, DocuSign right here. The stop is right on the 21-day moving average. So it looks like it's starting to level off, which is great. If it starts to move up, then we'll move the stop up. But right now, we'll keep it right there. The next one is VRT. And in this one, the stop is at 114. This one actually started the day pretty well. And I thought that it looked pretty good that we would move the stop up, but by the end of the day, it started pulling back. And then really just in the last hour, it went back to the middle. So it's showing potentially, it's a spinning top, so indecision. So it's showing potentially that it might start moving up again, but we don't know yet. Right now, the stop is right on this, what was resistance is now support, and right at the top of this gap right here. So that's where we have it. And we're going to keep it there until we see this start to move higher. And if it moves higher, we'll move the stop up to the 21 day, which is about 117. All right, so that one still looks okay. Oracle did not get stopped out, actually started to move up today. So again, that's what we want to see. If it continues to move up, then we'll move the stop up to the 21 day, which is at 180 right now. Currently, we're at 178. So we move it up a little bit, probably put us almost break even. Purchase price was 181. So if we get that to 180, we're almost at break even. And that's really the goal, is to get to break even. Intel, this is considered potentially a longer term play because we put the stop further down. It's actually down below the 50-day moving average down here, but it started moving up today as well, which is great. We'll see if that continues. And look at the accumulation distribution is finally perking up. So I think Wall Street is starting to accumulate Intel. I think they expect there to be a buyout at some point. It's still below the 200-day moving average, so there's still risk involved here. But the momentum looks good. It's above zero up here. And I look at the money flow. Money flow from right back in this area right here. Short-term money flow went above zero. The longer-term money flow is just still sort of flat. But if the short-term continues going up like this and the accumulation continues going up, I expect Intel to really start moving higher. So we'll see. There's a big gap over here where it gapped down. So it potentially could fill that gap at about 29, 28, 29, somewhere in that area. I would love for that to happen because I'll move my stop up to the top of resistance right here at 26. And we will have a profit on it if that happens, even if it gets stopped out. And then Venom, of course, we just entered that one. So that's at a negative right now, but this one looks like it's just beginning, but you never know. It could turn around. So if we get stopped out, so be it. Let's look at some of the ones that are on our watch list that we didn't buy because they were too close to earnings. Affirm is still doing really well. Look at that. It actually broke out. So Affirm is one that I mentioned that, when it pulled back right here, it might have been a good time to get in. And it certainly was. We didn't. But it certainly was a good time to get in. I don't like to chase as these things move up. I'd rather get them like right there where I first identified it, just too close to earnings. Zeta had a big sell-off last week. It's just hanging out at the lows down here. So that one's sitting right on the 200-day moving average. It might try to make a run back higher, but it's below the 50 and the 21. Accumulation distribution looks awful. Money flow looks terrible. So everything about Zeta right now looks bad, but this pink vertical line is where we identified it, and it did move up. And so the stop would have been right here at 32.50. And when it got stopped out after earnings, because the reason we didn't get in because it was too close to earnings, but when it dropped after earnings, the stop actually executed. So we ended up with a 14% gain, even though it's sold off almost 50%. And then Upstart right here, just hanging out at the lows. It looks like it might be getting ready to start moving up as well. So you can see support right now is right there at the lows of this big gap. So this one actually looks like it might be ready to start making a move, especially if the market starts to cooperate and starts to move higher. And then Builder is one that we didn't get in just because the reason it needs to get above the 50-day moving average was the note that I put over here. And that's the nice thing about this is you can keep notes and journal to see what's working and what's not. So this one needed to get above the 50-day, and it has not done that yet. So this right here is where it hit the scan, right above the 21, but below the 50. Did not buy it. We set a potential purchase price at 185, which is right there. So it's pulled back to the 200-day and might be starting to move a little bit. It's in the industrial space, building materials, but it needs to prove itself. So we're going to stay out of that one for now. So that's it for the scans. Um, we've got 5 of them in here now. And again, the goal is to have a nice list over here of stocks that keep moving up, and we keep moving our stops higher and higher. That's the way we do that. To get the worksheet on the web page, and you do need to be an annual subscriber for this. But if you go to the portfolios page, right down here is the paper trade worksheet. You just click on that button and you can download the paper trade worksheet direct. Just the one, not exactly, because I don't update the ones, but it is the worksheet. It just doesn't have all the same symbols in. I'll update it tonight, so it will later tonight. But that's it for now. Watch out for NVIDIA. NVIDIA, I think, is going to be the catalyst that makes the market explode on Thursday. They report after the close on Wednesday. So we'll see what happens. By the way, if you can look at our portfolio right now, there's what it looks like. So you can see the only one is the one that we just entered today, Viper Energy. Got in at 52.77, basically. Pulled back a little bit just before the close. But that's the only one that's negative right now. Everything else had positive on the day and overall positive. So that's what we like to see. For Viper Energy, if you remember, I said that we would set the stop at 50. So let's see. Right here, this is using E-Trade. This little X right there allows me to set a stop. So I'm going to put a stop price. I'm going to sell all the shares. I'm going to put a price here of $50. And it's going to be good till canceled, not just for one day. Okay, so that's how we set the stop. I'm going to preview that and send it. You can see it now has a little open order right here. So that stop is set. So if it does go down to 50, we'll be out. So that's how you do that. All right, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned tomorrow for more of the daily scan, and wait for NVIDIA on Wednesday. Should be fun. If anybody is interested, just come to breakpointtrading.net. The YouTube channel button is right at the upper right, so you can always get to it right from here. And newsletter is right there that I publish every weekend. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you later.